Hello, welcome to the self-learning platform by Dr. Sushma Singh. Today we start Unit 21, Conservatism. Let us have introduction about the unit. Conservatism as a philosophy dedicated to the defense of an established order or an attitude with a defensive strategy to maintain the present status quo, or in the classical sense of a right-wing ideology, is an important intellectual force today. That it is flourishing in the realm of ideas can be seen in a core of principles recognized in most societies of our time. The philosophers of conservatism are one in highlighting the principles on which conservatism bases itself. These principles, as Clinton Rothschild sums up, are the existence of a universal moral order sanctioned and supported by organized religion, the obstinately imperfect nature of man, in which unreason and sinfulness lurk always behind the curtain of civilized behavior, the natural inequality of men in most qualities of mind, body, and character, the necessity of social classes and orders, and the consequent folly of attempts at leveling by force of law, the primary role of private property in the pursuit of personal liberty and the defense of social order, the uncertainty of progress and the recognition that prescription is the chief method of such progress as a society may achieve, the need for a ruling and serving aristocracy, the limited search of human reason, and the consequent importance of traditions, institutions, symbols, rituals, and even prejudices, the fallibility and potential tyranny of majority rule, and the consequent desirability of diffusing, limiting, and balancing political power. Conservatism as a mood prefers liberty over equality, tradition over changes, history over politics, past over present, or at least the future prudent over inquisitive man, and ordered society over society demanding changes. Next point is meaning of conservatism. The term conservative has a variety of meanings. It refers to a person with a moderate or cautious behavior or a lifestyle that is conventional, even conformist, or a fear of or refusal to change. Conservatism is an ideology which opposes more than it favors. Andrew Haywood, political ideology, rightly says that there is, for example, some truth in the belief that conservatives have a clearer understanding of what they oppose than what they favor. To that extent, conservatism is a negative philosophy which preaches resistance to, or at least very suspicion of change. It is therefore a defense of the status quo. In this sense, conservatism is a political attitude rather than an ideology. People may be considered to be conservative when they resist change without subscribing to a conservative political creed. The Stalinists in the former Soviet Union who opposed Gorbachev's perestroika and glasnost were conservative in their action, but certainly not conservative in terms of their political ideology. The desire to resist change may be a recurrent theme within conservatism, but what distinguishes a conservative from people of other ideologies is the distinctive arguments and values which a conservative employs in upholding his objectives. Conservatism is more than an attitude of mind or an approach to life, or what Hug Searle said, a natural disposition of the human mind. Conservatives, in fact, prefer to base their arguments on experience and reality rather than abstract principles. Conservatism is neither simple pragmatism nor mere opportunism. It is based upon a particular set of political beliefs about human beings, the societies they live in, and the importance of a distinctive set of political values. As such, like liberalism and socialism, it can rightfully be described as an ideology, according to Andrew Haywood. The essence of conservatism, Russell Kirk says, is the preservation of the ancient moral traditions of humanity, and that for the conservative custom, convention, constitution, and the prescription are the roots of a tolerable civil order. He adds that forces of great power in nations are prescriptions in favor of local rights and private property, of habit of life, prejudices in favor of old decencies, the family, and religious dogmas. De Kirk lists six canons of conservative thought. First, a belief in a body of natural law which rules society and conscience. Second, a love of variety and the mystery of human existence as opposed to narrowing uniformity, egalitarianism, and utilitarianism. Third, a conviction that civilized society requires orders and classes as opposed to the classless society. Equality in the judgment of God and before courts of law. Equality of conditions means equality in servitude and boredom. Freedom and prosperity are inseparable, or else government becomes the master of all. This was the fourth. And fifth, a faith in prescription for customs, conventions, and old prescriptions are checks upon anarchy and men's lust for power. And sixth, change may not be good reform. A statement's chief virtue is prudence. Conservatism is the philosophy of individualism, of an autonomous individual, of an individual with alienable rights, of an individual rooted in strong moral values, of an individual nurtured in traditions. Next point is numerous uses of the term conservatism. It is much easier to locate the historical context, that is period between the 750 and 1850, as a response to the rapid series of changes in which conservatism evolved, than to specify what is or what the conservatives believe. Sometimes conservatism means outright opposition to all and every change. At others, it means an attempt to reconstruct a form of society which existed in an earlier period. Still, at other times, it appears to be primarily a political reaction and secondarily a body of ideas. Conservatism, as Clinton Rossier says, is a world where whose usefulness is matched only by its capacity to confuse, distort, and irritate. He adds, since the pattern of thoughts and action it denotes are real and enduring, and since no substitute seems likely to be generally accepted, conservatism will doubtless have a long life. Since World War II, the word conservatism is being used in numerous ways. The first one is temperamental conservatism. Conservatism, by definition, denotes a natural and cultural determined disposition to resist dislocating changes in a customary pattern of living and working. According to Rossier, it effectively is a temperament or psychological stance, a cluster of traits that are on daily display by most men in all societies. It lists the important elements of conservative temperament as habit, the enormous flywheel of society, and its most precious conservative agent, inertia, a force that often seems to be powerful in the social world as in the physical. Fear, especially fear of the unexpected, the irregular, and the uncomfortable. And emulation, a product of both fear of alienation from the group and a craving for its approval. So understood, one may speak with propriety of the conservatism of the poor, of the aged, and of the ignorant. At the same time, Rostier writes, one must assign a high value to conservative temperament in the pattern of social survival and even of social progress. Next is situational conservatism. Conservatism, by a second definition related to the first, is an attitude of opposition to disruptive changes in the social, economic, legal, religious, political, or cultural order. It describes Rostier clarifies, somewhat less crudely and somewhat more effectively, a pattern of social behavior, a cluster of principles and prejudices that are on daily display by many men in all developed societies. The distinguishing feature of this conservatism is the fear of change, which becomes transformed in the political arena, as Rostier tells, into the fear of radicalism. In this instance, the radicalism of men who purpose to make the world order at the expense of old values, institutions, and patterns of living. Situational conservatism is not confined only to the well to do, it extends to all levels of people who lament change in the status quo. It is unfortunate that both temperamental conservatism and situational conservatism tend to be equated to authoritarianism, obscurantism, racism, fascism, alienation, maladjustment, and the closed mind. Studies are needed before these elements are linked to either of conservatism. Next is political conservatism. Conservatism, by still another definition, is the aspirations and activities, most of them defensive rather than creative, of parties and movements that celebrate inherited pattern of morality and tested institutions, that oppose the reforming plans of the moderate left and the schemes of the extreme left. Political conservatism is a phenomena which is universal of organized society and essentially the defense of a going society. Reaction is not conservatism, it is the position of men who sign for past more intensely than they celebrate the present and who feel that a retreat back into it is worth trying. Conservative is a man, especially at rest, generally well adjusted psychologically as well as programmatically to a world that he never made. The reactionary is a man always in motion, refuses to, Rosier pointed out, acknowledge that whatever has been settled must henceforth be considered good or at least tolerable, and he seems willing to erase some past, scrap some institutions, even amend his nation's constitution so that he can roll back the social process to the time which his countrymen first went foolishly astray. This should not mean that a restorationist is a conservative always, though there seems a relationship between a restorationist in the sense of conservative and a revaluation. In the sense of restorationist, a conservative is de-illusionist, and like a revolutionist, he may have outburst, but it is going too far. A conservative which is revolutionary is not, is a man of order in whose scheme of things a shattered society has no place. Conservatism is restorationism insofar as it comes to holding a belief for traditions, customs, morals, history, and the older institutions. It is radical insofar as these are, as mentioned above, are to be protected from attacks of either liberal or socialist Marxist measures. It is liberal is so far as its values are not challenged. It is reactionary in so far as the trace of history remains within the control of tested moral gospels. Rosie writes, he or conservative, like the liberal, must reason and discriminate. He, like the radical, may have to plan and gamble. The conservative as reformer, the right wrong politician who tries to outpromise liberals in the area of welfare legislation, is an uncomfortable man. The conservative as revolutionary, the traditionalist who acts radically to preserve the crumbling values and institutions of his community, is no conservative at all. Here we want to wind up this lecture. Thank you so much for your attention.